Ahead of the 75th Armed Forces Day, South Korea's commander-in-chief sends a strong warning against North Korea, mentioning the end of the regime in the event of any nuclear weapons use. And the nation today held a street military parade for the first time in a decade, showcasing the most up-to-date advanced weapons and its core military assets. South Korea, Japan, and China agreed to revive a long-stalled trilateral summit at the earliest convenient time as senior diplomats from the three countries sit down in Seoul for talks. Team Korea wins more medals in Hangzhou on the third day, including a gold in running target mixed shooting, with more to look forward to this evening. So far, South Korea is ranked second overall. It's September 26, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. We begin our coverage with a stronger message from South Korea's commander-in-chief for the 75th Armed Forces Day. President Yoon Suk-yeol has warned that North Korea's regime will come to an end if it decides to use nuclear weapons, as he called for a strong military. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young takes us to the scenes.
South Korea and the United States will end the North Korean regime if the reclusive leadership uses its nuclear weapons. That's according to President Yoon Suk-yeol, attending the country's largest Armed Forces Day celebration to be held in a decade, which showcased South Korea's latest combat power in an unprecedented public parade in Seoul. As the North's nuclear program continues to pose an existential threat to the South and a challenge to world peace, Yoon said Seoul will immediately retaliate against any provocations from Pyongyang, noting that the country was swiftly ramping up its response, including its three-axis kill-chain preemptive strike system, the Korean-era missile defense, and the Korea Massive Punishment and Retaliation Plan. In a nod to some 300 US troops participating in the parade, the South Korean leader noted their bilateral security alliance is now nuclear-based, following the creation of their nuclear consultative group. He said the two sides will establish a unified response system that combines Washington's nuclear assets and Seoul's conventional assets, as they also strengthen joint drills and expand cooperation in the outer space and cyber domains. In that regard, Yoon warned that North Korea's use of nuclear weapons would trigger an overwhelming response from the ROK-US alliance, leading to the regime's downfall, adding that nuclear weapons would never guarantee the North's security. He also noted that the North Korean regime's obsession with its nuclear program only adds to the suffering of its citizens, whose human rights are compromised for weapons development.
정부는 굳건한 한미 동맹을 바탕으로 한미일 안보 협력을 더욱 강화하고 나아가 우방국들과 긴밀히 연대하여 강력한 안보 태세를 확립해 나갈 것입니다.
As Seoul widens its scope of security interests beyond the Korean peninsula, Yoon vowed to double government support for the defense industry, raising the need to promptly innovate and adopt cutting-edge technology for future battlefields, including space, cyber, and electromagnetic weaponry. Yoon further expressed his respect and gratitude to service members and their families throughout the decades, pledging greater support and benefits.
대한민국 국군은 건군 이래 지난 75년 동안 자유민주주의 대한민국 수호의 최후 보루로서 국가방위의 막중한 책임을 지고 맡은 바 사명을 다해왔습니다. 6.25 전쟁 당시 자유세계의 수많은 젊은이들이 대한민국의 자유를 지키기 위해 달려왔다면 이제는 우리 젊은이들이 세계 곳곳의 자유와 평화를 지키기 위해 파견되어 있습니다.
Marching across the streets of central Seoul, Yoon became the first leader in Korean history to take part in a street parade with members of the public and the military. The leader requested public interest and support in the armed forces, saying history has shown how only a strong military can guarantee true peace. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
And today in the streets of Seoul, there was a massive display of South Korea's latest and cutting-edge military weapons, ranging from K-2 battle tank to a homegrown long-range surface-to-air missile. This as the nation held a massive military parade in downtown, a big upgrade from the last one held 10 years ago. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung brings us highlights.
South Korea on Tuesday held a large-scale military parade on the streets of Seoul for the first time in 10 years to commemorate the 75th anniversary of Armed Forces Day. It was held in the main commercial and business district in Gwanghwamun. Over 4,600 troops participated, with some 170 pieces of military equipment on display up close for the public for the very first time. Under the theme, A Strong Military, Robust Security, and Peace Through Strength, the Grand Parade was aimed at showing off the full might of South Korea's military while sending a strong message to the enemy. It's the first time for the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps to showcase their assets to the public in central Seoul at the same time. Key players leading the parade were South Korea's infantry fighting vehicle, the K-21, the country's main battle tank, the K-2 Black Panther, and the K-9 self-propelled howitzer. At the heart of the parade was South Korea's three-axis system, which ties together three military concepts that counter North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats. One of the key weapons mobilized to highlight the system was the country's homegrown long-range surface-to-air missile, designed to shoot down North Korea's ballistic missiles. The country's domestically developed ballistic missile, the Hyunmoo, was also revealed to the public for the very first time. The missile is known to have the ability to strike all areas of North Korea with very high precision. Surveillance drones were also deployed, and the Navy's cutting-edge Aegis destroyer, Cheongjo the Great, took part through augmented reality. The landmark parade was, for the first time ever, joined by some 300 U.S. combat troops based in the country. Their participation signified the 70th anniversary of the Seoul and Washington alliance. The last time a street parade was held on Armed Forces Day was in 2013. It had been held every 5 years, but the parade had been scaled down in 2018 in consideration of inter-Korean relations. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Meeting in Seoul today, senior diplomats from South Korea, Japan, and China have agreed to hold a long-stalled summit between their leaders at their earliest convenience. Ahead of the summit, they are planning a meeting between their foreign ministers first, which will reportedly take place in November. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji reports.
Senior diplomats from South Korea, Japan, and China held talks in Seoul on Tuesday to discuss ways to resume holding trilateral summits between their leaders. This comes as South Korea, the chair of the meeting, is seeking to hold such a summit by the end of this year. Deputy Foreign Minister Chung Byung-won sat down for talks with Japan's Senior Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, Takehiro Funakoshi, and China's Assistant Minister of Foreign Affairs, Nung Nung. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson explained that Tuesday's meeting signals that the three countries have managed to take their first step in resuming cooperation between them that has been stalled for the past 4 years.
Through the meeting this morning, the three countries agreed to hold a trilateral summit at their earliest convenience. Also, to prepare for the summit, they decided to hold a meeting between their foreign ministers as soon as possible.
The three countries are reportedly discussing ways to hold a meeting between their foreign ministers in November in Busan. There, they will discuss specific details of the potential summit, which was last held in December 2019. There, they will discuss specific details of the potential summit, which was last held in December 2019. A meeting hasn't been held since then, amid the COVID-19 pandemic and strained relations between Seoul and Tokyo, due to diplomatic and trade disputes triggered by historic issues that date back to Japan's colonial occupation of Korea before and during World War II. Separately, a Japanese media network reported that during Tuesday's high-level talks, Seoul expressed the hope of holding the trilateral summit in December. Citing an unnamed South Korean official, JNN specifically said the meeting will take place in Seoul sometime after December 18th. Over in the U.S., when asked about the possible trilateral summit, the White House said it respects the ability of countries to make their own sovereign decisions in the best interest of their people, just as the U.S. responsibly manages its relationship with China and other partners and allies. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
In the U.S., Washington's top diplomat has applauded the advances in the alliance between South Korea and the U.S. over the past 70 years, adding that their initial interest in security has expanded into a partnership in all aspects. At the same time, Blinken warned against a growing military cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. Our Lee Seung-jae covers his remarks.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has once again highlighted the ironclad alliance between South Korea and the U.S. Speaking during the 8th Annual South Korea-U.S. Strategic Forum, co-hosted by the Center for Strategic and International Studies and the Korea Foundation on Monday in Washington, Blinken analyzed that the allies have been strengthening all aspects of their partnership, including security, trade, and economic dimensions. The top U.S. diplomat also noted that South Korea and the U.S. will soon celebrate 70 years since the signing of a mutual defense treaty, and that such cooperation has helped the alliance to grow even more in the spirit of 같이 갑시다, or let's go together.
Ever since, our alliance has been fortified by our enduring cooperation, by the shared spirit of 같이 갑시다. 70 years of relationship that has grown from a key security alliance into a vital global partnership.
He also took time to mention the enhanced trilateral cooperation with Japan, including the Camp David summit between the leaders of South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Meanwhile, Blinken also discussed the threats posed by a potential North Korea-Russia military cooperation. He stressed that North Korea's threats to broader security were demonstrated clearly by Kim Jong-un's visit to Russia this month. He added that Pyongyang is looking to strengthen and advance its own missile programs by working hand-in-hand with Russia and threatening global peace and security. Monday's forum was held to discuss the 70th anniversary of the signing of the Mutual Defense Treaty between South Korea and the United States on October 1st and the alliance's future over the next 7 decades. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
We're into day 3 now of the Asian Games in Hangzhou. Team Korea is into double figures for gold medals and is ranked 2nd overall. To bring us up to speed with what's been happening from Team Korea's perspective, we connect live to our sports editor, Paul Need. Hey, Paul. More gold medals and history made too. What can you tell us?
Yes, hi, Jongmin. Yes, 5 golds on Monday in total. More today, which we'll get to in a little while. But let's start with the history being made. It was in swimming, with Team Korea winning its first ever gold medal in the 4x200 meter freestyle relay, and in doing so set an Asian record time of 7 minutes and 1.73 seconds. The previous record, which was held by Japan, had stood for more than 14 years. But the team of Yang Jae-hoon, Lee Ho-jun, Kim Woo-min and Hwang Sun-woo earned something of an unexpected win for South Korea. This followed Ji Yu-chan earning gold in the men's 50-meter freestyle earlier in the evening. This was Korea's first gold in swimming at the Games in Hangzhou. In fencing, an all-Korean final in the men's individual sabre meant it was 1 gold and 1 silver. The gold was won by Oh Sang-uk, beating fellow Korean Gu Bon-gil 15-7. This actually was a rematch of their clash from the final in 2018. But this time it was Oh Sang-uk who came out on top, stopping Gu Bon-gil from winning gold at a 4th straight Asian Games. It was Oh's first Asian Games title and Korea's 2nd gold in fencing in Hangzhou. Gu said afterwards that he has no regrets about falling short and that he was honoured just to be able to have a go at 4 in a row. In table tennis, South Korea has secured at worst a silver medal in the men's team event. In the semis on Monday, Im Jong-hoon overcame Nima Al-Mian 3-2. Jang Woo-jin then beat Noshad Al-Ian by the same scoreline, and Park Gang-hyun defeated Syed Amir Hossein Hodai 3-0. This gave Team Korea a 3-0 win overall and booked their place in the final, which takes place tonight at 8 p.m. Korea time. Korea face China in what will be their 10th straight ASEAN final, but do so in search of a first gold medal since 1990. Meanwhile, the Korea women's team won bronze following defeat to China in the semi-finals. Now to football. South Korea's women's team have reached the quarter-finals. They beat the Philippines 5-1 on Monday in what was their final group stage match, thanks to a hat-trick from Son Hwa-yeon and goals from Ji So-yeon and Chon Garam. For Ji, it was her 150th appearance for Korea and 69th goal, both records for any South Korean footballer. Korea will play either the runner-up of Group D or the winner of Group C on September the 30th. Moving on now to Tuesday's action. Rugby Sevens, South Korea has reached the final for the first time in 17 years. This guarantees Korea at least silver. They beat China 36-7 in Tuesday morning's semi-final. The first half ended 24-0 with Korea dominating proceedings. Up next is Hong Kong in the final at around 7 p.m. tonight, Korea time. Should Korea win gold, the Korea Rugby Association's president, Chae-yoon, has promised a bonus of 100 million won, or around $75,000. Later in the day, there were more medals in shooting for South Korea. The team of Jung Yoo-jin, Ha Kwang-chol and Kwak Yong-bin won gold in the men's 10-meter running target mixed run team event. They earned 1,116 points and beat Kazakhstan by 5 points. The same trio won gold on Monday in the 10-meter running target event. And also there was a bronze in the 10-meter air rifle mixed team event with Eun So and Park Ha-jun defeating the Indian team of Divyanesh Singh Panwar and Ramita Jindal 20-18. Park has now won 3 medals at the current Asian Games, following 2 silver on Monday. That's all for me for now. Let's have a look at the medal rankings.
President Yoon Suk-yeol's diplomatic activities will stretch to the end of the year, with 2 state visits announced for November and December. On Tuesday, the top office announced President Yoon and First Lady Kim Gun-hee will make a state visit to the United Kingdom in November upon the invitation of King Charles III. The visit marks the 140th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and the UK and will be Yoon's first trip there since the King's coronation. The South Korean leader's previous visit to London was in September last year for the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. In December, the first couple have been invited for a state visit to the Netherlands by King Willem-Alexander. Since the two countries forming diplomatic ties in 1961, this is the first state visit for a South Korean leader. Third-term lawmaker Hong Ik-pyo has been elected new floor leader of the main opposition Democratic Party at the National Assembly. The election took place this afternoon and pitted 2 other 3-term lawmakers, Kim Min-seok and Nam In-sun, against Hong. After a runoff between Nam and Hong, the latter was elected. In an acceptance speech, he promised to listen to each party member and to manage matters transparently. The ruling People Power Party released a statement congratulating Hong and expressing anticipation that he will unite the factional DP as soon as possible. The election came after former floor leader Park Kwang-won resigned last week following the National Assembly passing a motion seeking to arrest party leader Lee Jae-myung. South Korea will offer free COVID-19 vaccinations starting next month. The Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency announced on Tuesday that the vaccination campaign will begin with high-risk groups, including individuals aged 65 and older, starting on October 19th. Appointments for these groups start today. For everyone else, vaccinations will commence on November 1st, and pre-registration will be available from October 18th. The health authorities are recommending that all individuals receive booster vaccinations alongside their annual flu shots. Dondeokjeon Hall, it's a Western-style royal guest house of the Korean Empire in Doksugung Palace, located in Seoul. This historic two-story building is open to the public after 100 years, having been rebuilt in its original shape. Our Yoon takes us there.
The doors to Dondeokjeon Hall, the state guest house of the Korean Empire, have been reopened to the public after around a century. Dondeokjeon Hall within the grounds of Doksugung Palace was built from 1902 to 1903 in a Western style to serve as a commemorative venue for celebrating King, later Emperor, Gojong's 40th year on the throne. It was later used for diplomatic exchanges and as a guest house to demonstrate Korea's determination to protect its sovereignty and self-designated status as a modern country on a par with Western powers. Dondeokjeon is reported to have fallen into disuse in the 1920s and was destroyed during the Japanese colonial era.
In the first floor's permanent exhibition hall, immersive videos depict historical events like the celebrations for the 40th year of Emperor Gojong's reign.
The reconstructed hall officially opened to the public on September 26th, featuring a special exhibition room on the first floor and a detailed exhibition on the second floor. The Cultural Heritage Administration completed reconstruction approximately.
I think the building was constructed very beautifully. I heard the architecture was influenced by the popular style in Paris, France, and I thought the reconstruction was done remarkably well.
The exhibition has a space that explores 100 years of memories and dreams for the next 100 years, and artifacts that provide a glimpse into Dondeokjeon Hall's history. Visitors can also see the Seoul Jingwansa 태극기, which is praised for its vivid expression of Korea's determination for independence from Japan's colonial rule. This superimposes the blue section of the central part of Korea's national flag and its 4 trigrams on top of the central red part of the flag of Japan. The exhibition, consisting of 5 sections, introduces the process of establishing diplomatic relations with various countries such as the United States, Germany, Great Britain, and Denmark, after signing an international treaty with Japan in 1876. The exhibition also sheds light on the lives and activities of various diplomats. On the second floor, visitors can enter an archive room designed with the motif of Western salons of the early 20th century. Doksugung Palace officials say that the exhibition's purpose is to reflect on the value of modern diplomacy by the Korean Empire, and Dondeokjeon Hall will continue to be a space that maximizes its utility as a cultural heritage. 이은희, Arirang News.
We have some lingering showers until tomorrow. If you take a look at the satellite imagery, rain clouds are covering most of South Korea. Although the overall rainfall is fairly trivial, it's quite heavy for autumnal showers. Until tomorrow, the East Coast will see 20 to 70 millimeters. Inland regions of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-buk-do provinces will see up to 40. The Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheong-do provinces can expect 5 to 20 millimeters. Showers will start to taper off late tomorrow evening. Weather conditions for this upcoming Chuseok holiday looks fairly moderate. On the actual day of Chuseok on Friday, skies will be partly overcast, but it will still be possible to see the full moon through the clouds. And morning temperatures will be 1 to 2 degrees higher than today. Seoul and Gyeongju will be starting off at 20 degrees. Highs in Seoul get up to 25, Daejeon 26. Gyeongju and Busan will be topping out at 28 degrees. Temperatures will be on a cooling trend from this point on. Next week, chilly mornings are expected with lows of 13 degrees in Seoul. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
Welcome. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
Arirang TV is conducting a quality and satisfaction evaluation to enhance the broadcast service for viewers worldwide. Please visit our website www.arirang.com to provide your honest opinions. Participants will be entered into a draw for a chance to win prizes. 2023 Overseas TV Viewer Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
Busan, Korea is already reaching the entire world, like ocean waves that travel far and wide. It's Busan, the perfect World Expo city, transforming our world, navigating toward a better future.
South Korea's experience in tackling COVID-19 and introduced a Korean New Year. A Korean survivor of Japan's wartime slavery met with
extraordinary climate crisis and pledged to work with the EU to tackle the challenge.
The objective of its North Korea policy is
protesters gathering across the country to peacefully demand an end to hate and violence.
Arirang, what matters?
Lotte takes a new leap beyond its boundaries. Our change will lead to better lives for all. New Lotte, the power of a better world. New today, better tomorrow. Lotte.
Welcome. (24시간) 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
The taste of Namdo, bridging the world. Unfolding in the romantic city of Yeosu, Jeonnam. The 29th Namdo Food Festival is going to be held from October 6th to October 8th. A place where flavors transform into art and tastes become cherished memories. Relish the autumnal charm of Namdo, which nourishes both the soul and the senses in the vibrant city of Yeosu, synonymous with romance and vitality. Feel and taste the origin of K-food to the distinguished 29th Namdo Food Festival. We warmly invite you all.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Hello everyone, it's Tuesday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. October 1st marks the 75th founding anniversary of the Korean Armed Forces. As it falls on a 6-day holiday this year, Seoul staged a large-scale military parade today. Tanks and armed forces marched through central Seoul, showcasing South Korea's key weapons, including the Hyunmoo surface-to-surface missile. Such a military parade is staged for the very first time in a decade, as one did not take place under the liberal Moon Jae-in administration. What key weapons were people able to see, and what message was Seoul trying to send to Pyongyang? For more on this, we welcome Professor Joel Atkinson from the Graduate School of International and Area Studies of Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Professor Atkinson, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for being with us. All right, we also have Professor Pan Gil-ju from the Ilmin International Relations Institute from Korea University. Good to see you, Professor Pan.
Pleased to be here.
Thank you. Now, first question to our Professor Pan. So, South Korea, as I said before, staged a large-scale military parade in central Seoul, marking the 75th founding anniversary of the country's armed forces. Now, what is the legal basis for this parade, and how significant have these parades been in the past?
Sure. The regulation of the country's Armed Forces Day was enacted by the President's Executive Order in 1956, but abolished in 1976. And then in 1982, the Armed Forces Day was again included in the regulation on various anniversaries. As of right now, the Executive Order of 33620 notes that the Armed Forces celebrations are made to demonstrate the prowess and combat power abroad as well as at home, and to raise the morale of the soldiers. Based upon both legal and substantial aspects, I would say that these celebrations matter from the perspective of four actors. First, when it comes to a domestic audience, a large-scale military parade helps the Korean public be proud of its mother country and feel confident in its military strength for protecting themselves and their assets. Moreover, this parade contributes to helping citizens enhance their sense of security. Second, it is helpful for soldiers and the military as a whole. This parade helps soldiers raise both their pride and morale, furthermore enhances military readiness. With a large-scale parade being prepared, the military has an opportunity to intensively check its military readiness and posture. Third, it is helpful to deter North Korea's provocations. Demonstrating state state-of-the-art weapons contributes to raising South Korea's deterrent power at the end of the day. So this parade helps deterrence work by preventing North Korea from miscalculating. Finally, this parade creates synergy regarding international actors. As international actors turn their eyes to a large-scale demonstration, South Korea's prestige is going up. Moreover, this weapon demonstration is most likely to be helpful for exporting weapons more in the international arena. All in all, a large-scale parade is sometimes needed even in democracies for pride, morale, deterrence, and prestige.
All right, I see. Given that what Professor Pan talked about, it seems this military parade has very much significance. Now, Professor Atkinson, but this is the first such a parade in a decade, as I said before. For those who might not be familiar with Korean history and Korean politics, why was one not held during the liberal Moon Jae-in administration?
Yes, so these parades have been held every 5 years since 1998. By both progressive and conservative administrations. The exception was 2018 when the progressive president, Moon Jae-in, decided that there wouldn't be a parade. And he gave many reasons for that. One, he said, was it places too much of a burden on soldiers, the personnel having to train in the summer heat. But the main reason seems to have been that he was hoping to foster conditions to encourage talks between Washington and Pyongyang and inter-Korean cooperation. So he decided that that would be best done by not having a parade. And instead of a parade, there was a concert. There was some big names like Psy were there, and it was more of a celebration for the service people. There was a few, there was a flyover, the aerobatic team, but there wasn't this military parade.
Right, so it had to be downsized because we had to consider relationship with North Korea. Now, this time, however, it was staged on a very large scale, showcasing the integrated capabilities of Army, Navy, and Air Forces in the heart of Seoul. And President Yoon Suk-yeol himself participated in the parade, which was the first time as a Korean president. What does this hint at?
Yeah, so my understanding is that in the previous parades also the presidents took part. So you can see them, the photos of them in the vehicles. I think it very much shows his kind of role, emphasizes his role as the commander-in-chief. And, the amount of integrated capabilities on display, it's about, sending a strong message to North Korea about the capabilities that Korea has, but also arms exports is a big focus for Korea, the so-called K-defense. So just the range and the new weapon systems that were on display for the first time, really sends that signal of strength, but also that Korea is a major player in the arms industry.
Right. Well, since our professor brought up the weapons that were displayed, I'd like to ask Professor Pan. South Korean strategic weapons, including the Hyunmoo homegrown missiles, have been displayed. Could you tell us what other major weapons that were on show during the parade?
Well, first of all, a raft of tactical weapons was demonstrated in this large-scale parade, including K2 Hukpyo, South Korea's major battle tanks, Chunmoo multiple rocket launchers, and KAV, Korea Assault Amphibious Vehicle. Meanwhile, what matters more is that strategic weapons or new versions of weapons based on Korea's three-axis system were open to the public, aimed at enhancing its deterrent power in a situation where North Korea has stepped up its nuclear provocations. To that end, LSAM, a long-range surface-to-air missile, scheduled to complete its development by 2024, was open to the public for the first time. Since LSAM is a key asset for South Korea's three-axis system, the appearance of this weapon is expected to enhance its deterrence power significantly. High-yield ballistic missiles called Hyunmoo-5 were included as well. It is noteworthy that hybrid systems based upon multi-manned and unmanned teaming as well as unmanned systems were demonstrated. In particular, the next generation of Aegis destroyer, Jeongjo the Great, joined the parade while applying the technology of AR, augmented reality. All in all, major weapons from all three branches in the military appeared in the parade along with their soldiers.
All right, there certainly were a lot to see. Now, Professor Bang, one more question. Another scene that was worthy taking a look at was how over 300 combat troops from the 8th U.S. Army under the U.S. Forces Korea took part in the parade. Could you tell us more about this?
Sure, as you're well aware, it is the 70th anniversary of the ROK-US alliance this year. So a number of events and celebrations continue to go on, which included the ROK president's visit to the White House in the last April. In this line of efforts, the 75th founding anniversary of South Korea's armed forces serves as a golden opportunity to show international society, as well as the citizens of Korea and the United States, that the ROK-US alliance has maintained successfully for about 70 years, serving as a role model of alliance politics in the world. In this respect, this celebration seems to help enhance the ROK-US cohesiveness simply beyond the demonstrations of both tactical and strategic weapons. That explains why the largest U.S. forces attend this celebration, which included 300 combat soldiers from the 8th Army. By the same token, demonstrating the watertight alliance by the attendance of American combat soldiers seems to be aimed at offsetting provocations of aggressors like North Korea. To be more precise, I believe that showing their cohesion in taking advantage of this parade is significant to send a warning to North Korea and Russia in a situation where an arms deal between the two countries seems to be made.
All right, I see your point. Now, I'd like to move on to how North Korea might perceive this. And so, Professor Atkinson, last year, as far as I know, North Korea fired 2 ballistic missiles on the very day, on the Armed Forces Day on October 1st. And that being said, should we expect any provocation around this time around?
No, I think my understanding is the Armed Forces Day and these parades are not a major factor kind of influencing the timing of North Korea's tests. But I think most experts are looking at a kind of increased tempo of those tests moving forward, but not really influenced by the timing of this parade.
All right, I see your point. Now, Professor Bang, I'd like to also tap on ties between Russia and North Korea. Now, staying on the North Korean front, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is to visit Pyongyang in October as part of follow-up measures from the Kim-Putin summit. Now, before we move on to the actual possibility of Putin visiting Pyongyang in the near future, experts say Russia officially and quite promptly responding to Kim's invitation is quite rare. Is this right?
Well, it is unexpected and rare indeed that Putin disclosed his acceptance of Kim Jong-un's request to visit North Korea so early in a situation where this deal was condemned by international society. In the beginning, the Kremlin pretended to deny this acceptance, but changed this posture, although the reason behind this change has been unknown. By the way, one thing seems for sure. North Korea-Russia cooperation seems neither temporal nor tactical, at least for the time being. As you noted, Foreign Minister Lavrov is scheduled to visit, revision North Korea in order to make follow-up measures, including very possibly an arms deal and combined exercises. Since Putin accepted Kim Jong-un's invitation, the October meeting is most likely to bring the North Korea-Russia summit in Pyongyang to the table. What does it mean? I would say that the two countries attempt to make the bilateral cooperation periodic and institutionalized. Meanwhile, China, as an intervening variable, seems to have an impact on how cohesive North Korea and Russia will be.
All right, I see your point. Now, Professor Atkinson, though our Professor Bang already pointed out, I'd like to ask you again. If Putin's visit to Pyongyang does take place in the near future, it would be the first time since 2000. What significance would it have, and could it be considered as a milestone to strengthen their bilateral ties?
Yeah, well, I think it will be a milestone. 23 years is a long time between visits. So it really, it matters. And I think it really speaks to Putin's desperation and his isolation following his decision to invade Ukraine. So, by visiting Pyongyang, he gets, can move closer to North Korea, have access to the weaponry, the artillery shells that he might need, and also maybe even create a bit of leverage with the West, warning them that if they don't make concessions in Ukraine, then he can always help North Korea more. And, for North Korea, it's a real golden opportunity, access to, advanced Russian military technology, and a real chance for them to show, for Kim Jong-un to show that, show the Americans that their efforts to isolate him are not as successful as they would have hoped, and also, President Yoon as well, showing that, Kim Jong-un is not isolated and he has access to the help that he needs to carry on with his weapons program.
Right, I see. One more question. How do you believe the South Korea and the United States would view such a visit if it really takes place?
Well, I think, they'll be very disappointed, and we'll see some threats. President Yoon's hinted that he could always help Ukraine more, and the Americans also have, warned that this shouldn't happen. But beyond that, there's probably not a lot they can do about it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if it does go ahead.
All right, I see. Now, Professor Pan, I'd like to tap on North Korea and China relationship as well. It seems North Korea did not send a high-level delegation to the Asian Games in Hangzhou. And some reports say this shows the lukewarm relationship between Pyongyang and Beijing. What's your view on this?
Well, it's a three-dimensional equation to me. Anyhow, we need to take a look at the absence of a high-level delegation by North Korea to the Asian Games in Hangzhou from the perspective of sports diplomacy. Diplomatic arena, major sporting events serves as an indirect method to convey its message to the other. If a high-level delegation is dispatched, it is intended to show its willingness to improve its relationship with its counterpart. If it is not, it means it is unpleased and unwilling. Earlier, Beijing sent a lower-level delegation to Pyongyang on the 75th anniversary of the foundation of DPRK on 9 September 2023. In response, Pyongyang sent a low-level delegation to Hangzhou. It is kind of the symmetrical relationship in terms of sporting events. With these insights in mind, as of right now, the North Korea-Russia relationship seems more cohesive than the North Korea-China relationship. Meanwhile, there remains a possibility that Pyongyang will send a high-level delegation to the closing ceremony of the Asian Games. If it happens indeed, the lukewarm relationship between the two countries might be improved. However, the fact that the Kim regime does not send a high-level delegation to the opening ceremony still shows less cohesive relationship between Pyongyang and Beijing than before. So I believe that North Korea's behavior is intended to enhance its diplomatic leverage to both Russia and China by taking advantage of the new corridor mechanism strategically.
Right, I see. Now, Professor Atkinson, since we are talking about China, I'd like to ask you this. Recently, South Korean Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and Chinese President Xi Jinping met with each other. And reportedly, it was Xi Jinping who first brought up his potential visit to South Korea. Could we see this as a hint of Xi's willingness to improve ties?
I think it certainly is a hint. Xi Jinping last visited Korea in 2014. And after that, there's been several Korean presidential trips to China. So this issue of Xi Jinping visiting Korea before Yoon goes to China has become a real litmus test of China's willingness to work cooperatively with the Yoon administration. So if he's willing to do so without some serious preconditions. If he's not expecting any concessions on the THAAD missile defence or anything of that nature, if he's basically willing to come without preconditions, then it will be a clear signal that he's really working towards a more cooperative relationship. And I think you could give President Yoon some credit there for creating the conditions for that by, he received a lot of criticism for abandoning a so-called, pragmatic approach or leaning too close to the United States. But it certainly seems that by strengthening the relationship with the US and reaching out to Japan, Xi Jinping is, I wouldn't say he's concerned, but he's obviously, he wants to counteract that to some extent at least. So that's created the conditions where he's potentially willing to meet with the South Korean side in a more cooperative way.
All right, I see. Now, Professor Pan, I'd like to ask you this last question. Some say managing the relationship with China could prevent so-called new Cold War dynamics from becoming fixed in the region. What's your view on this, and how should South Korea's diplomatic direction be towards China?
Well, it could mitigate Cold War mechanism, I guess. Well, I think improving relations between South Korea and China helps stay away from the new Cold War mechanism towards the cooperative posture, although it might not be effective significantly. I believe that the South Korea-Japan-China summit is linked with the South Korea-China summit, which means if one is made, the other is most likely to be made as well. China has seen the trilateral summit between South Korea, the United States, and Japan at Camp David very negatively. However, if the trilateral summit between South Korea, Japan, and China is made indeed, it means that one group of trilateral cooperation is comparable with the other group of trilateral cooperation. This comparability is expected to make the principle of inclusiveness function in the diplomatic arena, turning out to help mitigate the new Cold War mechanism at the end of the day.
All right, I see. Now, Professor Atkinson, may I ask your opinion as well?
Yeah, so I would probably frame it a bit differently. I think Cold War, rather than a Cold War, a focus on a US-China kind of bilateral tension, what we're really seeing is a worsening spiral of relations, not just between China and the United States, but also, China and India, China and Japan, and many other countries. So, it's a very worrying dynamic, and the region is certainly heading in that troubling direction. And it's not within South Korea's power to change that. But what South Korea can do is kind of identify what way the situation's heading, identify the kind of trajectory, and try to get ahead of events rather than being dragged along behind them. And I'd say President Yoon's doing a relatively good job of putting the country in a position where it's not always caught on the back foot, or it's not always playing catch up. So the outreach to Japan, improving relations with the United States, but also being open to talking with China and cooperating where possible is probably the best that South Korea could hope to do.
All right, I see. Now, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Professor Atkinson, thank you for your time and insights. Thank you. And Professor Ban, thank you for your time and insights as well. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.
Tripstar Gram.